So, I promised that I would react to this Gotham Knights building a brand new Gotham City, the 400 years of history. I'll probably cut it up very, smart. I'll try to like splice it up properly. I don't know if it's going up in the morning or night. I don't really care either. But you'll see. You'll understand why. Because there's going to be two videos today. And one of them is very, very important that you guys have watched. So let's just get into this. Let's see what's going on. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. I'm tired as shit. All right, let's get into this.
In the 1650s, 5 families left Europe, eventually landing on the rain-swept islands that pepper the mouth of what would one day be called Gotham River. Those families, the Waynes, the Cobblepots, the Elliots,
Oh, so we're
the
getting like a
Arkhams,
documentary.
the Kanes, would build a colonial fort together and sow the seeds
like
of
it.
centuries of dominance in the area. Gotham City was born. The city quickly spread beyond its original bounds, developing 5 boroughs, and in each, one of those 5 founding families would take root. In the early days, the Kanes
like the art
established
style that
themselves
they're
on
going for,
Gotham's natural harbour, now known as historic
like
Gotham,
neo
tying the family to their new
noir.
country's military might, building ships and weapons of war. By the 1850s, Gotham had become a major trade hub, helped along by the industrialist Cobblepots and their smoke-belching Southside steel mills. Gotham continued to transform over time. In the
So they have like a
1920s,
legitimate
Elliots took hold of the
full-on
20th
history of
century's
all
newest
that.
means of control, mass media, and built downtown Gotham in a new Art Deco image. By the 1960s, Gotham had truly become a patchwork of industry and architecture. The Arkhams settled in North Gotham, building their
That is
famous asylum.
probably
Yes,
one of the
it's
best.
in the game, and no, it's not as you've previously seen it.
We could probably
Waynes,
visit it too.
meanwhile,
That's
built
gonna be
their
cool.
billions in New Gotham, helping advance the town into a new technological age. Which brings us to the present day, and the Gotham you'll be exploring as Batman's proteges in Gotham Knights. An open world as soaked in history as it is by neon light and vigilante-friendly shadow.
Alright.
Warner Brothers Games Montreal
Hey,
created
look,
that
we got
history
free
early
roam
in
gameplay.
production,
Holy
a whole
shit.
new timeline for a whole new version of Gotham City. And it isn't merely window dressing. The timeline informs everything from the plot to the gameplay to the game's biggest mystery, the
Right.
Court of Owls conspiracy.
And I think that's honestly one of the most important things that they had to get right here if they were going to use the Court of Owls as the main antagonist, is at least setting up the lore of Gotham to present how the Court of Owls are that type of threat. Because if you just like plop them into like the Arkham world, right, it's actually kind of difficult to do that in many ways, because like there are no implications, there's no type of teases besides like one or two things in Arkham Origins that kind of like set that up. But besides that, there was literally nothing in the Arkham games that would have presented a good reason for why the Court of Owls are even there. And the world just wasn't even big enough to do that. But for this, there are multiple days. We might see multiple weeks for all we know. And not to mention, the world looks massive. I mean, like, I saw the map before I even saw this video. We're going to see the map soon. But holy fuck, it's big. And I genuinely think it's such a good idea to have this big of a map and like this deep of lore for this game, especially if you're gonna have the Court of Owls as the main antagonist.
The team didn't just build an open world to play in. It's truly
There's
trying
people,
to
but
build
it
a
looks
city.
pretty empty. I mean, hopefully this is pretty like early on, but most of the gameplay that we have seen like recently hasn't said. I mean, there was a car going by, so there are cars, but that looked like a very empty. Look at the big map. Holy shit!
Historically
Hang on. So, I mean, all of this looks very, very cool, right? It kind of seems like Spider-Man PS4 in a way. The crime activities, the faction presence, the collectibles, that actually seems like it's very Spider-Man PS4ish. You get clues for, I think, the villains. So you get like different villain story arcs, and you have to find clues throughout the city to kind of like figure that out. There's the Penguin in there. You could actually see a few other, I think those are like cops or whatnot. But it's very interesting. I think the main villain that they're presenting right now for us is like Penguin, the Court of Owls, and Mr. Freeze. So that's probably the only thing that we're going to see.
told them.
So for us, the 5 boroughs, it started with the families. The families moved there, they built imposing structures within those districts. So then we build around that to where the identity for those districts really is based off of that family.
Within those boroughs, the team tries to tell stories without simply having someone speak them out loud.
If you visit a city in real life, it's hard to tell some of that history. So because we're making a game, really what we want to do is kind of obviously reveal some of that stuff. So there's
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
how much I
areas
like that
are
teleporting
stuck
shit.
in time, like even something as, kind of generic as construction, like it becomes
That's pretty
interesting
cool.
when it's
Or if you're just
halted
exploring, you can
construction,
just like
or
do that.
it's now abandoned and overgrown, or it's ruins. You know, all those things are more interesting for the player than, you know, just a modern city. So we tried to have a lot of those areas where it's almost stuck in time, so the player can really experience what it was back then a little bit too, and see how the city evolved.
Okay.
The team has historical.
Let's just stop real quick. This teleporting shit for Robin, it's not hitting, bro. If I'm playing as Robin, I'm solely using the bike. I am not running around with this teleport shit for traversal. What the fuck? I really hope that we're gonna be able to like unlock like a gliding ability, because that would be very, very nice. But like, dude, 8 seconds to teleport around the map constantly and just like grappling, like, oh my god, I can't. That's so bad. All right, back to the world building
And gameplay basis.
Look at it. Fuck
Take the
me.
cauldron built into the Cobblepot's lower Gotham area.
That looks
We
nice.
always would like to
I
tell a
really
story
like this
for
Gotham.
every
It's so
borough,
like
and there's one specific
in
one that
depth
is
and
not necessarily
compact.
related to the family, but is an effect of some of the projects that those families undertook, which was a mining operation that happened in a riverbed. So they decided to wall off 2 sides of a portion in the water, and they dredged it for mining operations. It would attract workers for the mining operation. It was low-cost housing. It remained like actually a slum.
The cauldron's history is written into its walls, with tumble-down buildings and cramped, unplanned streets, all set in the shadow of the more
That's cool, look
prosperous
at that.
districts around it. But all of this is a distinct gameplay
They
choice.
definitely got this world
spot
right.
is kind of like a transition area between the financial district and the south side. So we have like 2 very different themes, while being in a third theme that is very organic, has a complete different way for the player to navigate over. It's a lot more parkouring. So the player always has the choice
Whoa, hang on here. I'm gonna replay that gameplay like a little bit here. Just like, guys, that looks rough. Like parkour? Come on here. He's jankily jumping over rooftops. That looked rough, man. I'm ready to explore this world. I'm ready to give it the benefit of the doubt, right? But good lord, they're not saying this is like in progress development or alpha gameplay. You know, they're just presenting this 2 months away from the gameplay's release or the game's release. And you're telling me, oh, this is the parkour for the game, as he's like jankily jumping over rooftops. Am I the only one seeing that? Okay, whatever. Let's get back into it.
pick the best tool and the best navigation
Parkour,
to
my
be
ass.
as efficient as possible. And with different neighborhoods,
There's the bike.
give
There you
different
go. Yeah, that's the only thing I'm
This
using for
interplay
Robin.
of history and
I
gameplay
don't give a
can be
fuck.
seen across the city. The once beautiful Robinson Park is a symbol of the city's decay, but it's also an open space where your usual stealth tactics may no longer work in the same way.
Right.
The enormous Elliott Center is a literally gilded reminder of the family patriarch, complete with a
I wonder if we're gonna
museum
get
about
Hush.
the family inside. And it's also
Maybe he
a
comes back as, like,
complex,
Bruce Wayne.
multi-layered bit of
That'd be cool.
vertical
Nice
level
storyline.
design built to house the Mr. Freeze boss battle later in the game. And it's not just that timeline that acts as history.
I like how
for it.
Mr.
While
Freeze
this
is
a
the
new
only
take
boss
on
battle they
Gotham,
spoil.
It includes many references to the comic books it's drawing from. Of course, there are buildings you'll know, right down to deep-cut references like Noonan's sleazy bar from Garth Ennis's Hitman series. But the very fabric of Gotham itself acts as an Easter egg in places. Perhaps most interesting is that this Gotham has a public history and a secret history. We already know the game will center on the Court of Owls, a shadowy, manipulative group born of the founding families. Gotham itself will reflect that conspiratorial past too.
One of the things that
Nice.
we love about the Court of Owls, aside from the fact that that it's a new, fresh addition to the Batman canon, is that they represent a threat that is so embedded and so
It
intrinsic.
sucks we'll never see those
that
scenes
even
though, huh?
Batman doesn't know about it. And the notion of a threat that is so intimately tied to a city that he considers to be his city, that he knows like the back of his hand, that he's been patrolling for literally decades at this point. That's a very intimidating and scary idea. With
But the problem, I'm sorry, story-wise, I'm sorry to interrupt, right, is that Batman's not figuring the shit out.
that in mind, what we knew is that we needed to give you a sense of Gotham's history in order to be able
Or
to
no
show
motion
all the
there,
ways
just-
that the court is embedded in that. That feeling that Gotham is kind of an adversary, and that Court of Owls is the
That
embodiment
Batman
of
logo was a cool
personification.
shot right there.
The phrase commonly used.
And I
by the
like what they're
studio
doing with the
for
Court
this
of
is
Owls
that they
story,
didn't
what he
just
just said
build
there.
up, creating those hugely visible landmark buildings and stories.
I love the smoke too around the buildings. Like, I think that's such a good little touch too. Like, honestly, genuinely speaking, I think that the city is the main selling point of this game. The sole main selling point of this game is this goddamn city. Because if we're going to be completely honest, Gotham Knights, in terms of the world, in terms of the open actual world, way better than Arkham Knight. Way better than any Arkham game that we've ever gotten. This Gotham blows every other fucking Gotham from any other media outside of the comics away. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, this is fucking beautiful, and I can't wait to explore it. I just hope that the story reflects the fucking...
For every new district, but that they also built down.
We started to imagine how the form of the city could be affected by that. And it started kind of helped suggest a geography, an urban geography to the city. Going
Level
all the way
building,
back to,
or
like, the
level
late
design's
1600s.
really nice.
And then we started to think, okay, well, what were the major events in history that they would have reacted to? You know, is it the Revolutionary War? Is it the kind of exploitation of the West? Like the building of the railroads? Like, all of these ideas became part of that conversation and allowed us to kind of build layers.
That
of
evolution's
created
so
history.
cool. I'm not
And
gonna
we
lie.
built it up and we built it down. Like, we said, okay, what's buried under the city?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the hidden secrets that you can find in the course of investigating the Court of Owls?
Naturally, the team isn't talking too much about what those buried secrets might be, but we see hints of it as we're
Why
shown
that taxi
Gotham's
just
open
stopped?
world.
There's nobody even
A
there.
seemingly nondescript building might be a gang hideout, which leads to a tunnel system that brings you into an exit into Gotham that you would never have guessed at, for
Okay.
example.
We want the Court of Owls to feel like they're involved in everything. If you were to go to a major city in North America, like, often they'll build a city on top of another one. Like Chicago, like, they had the fire, they just built on top of it because it's not worth, like, rebuilding, destroying and rebuilding. So what the undergrounds allow us to do is kind of reveal that cross section of the
Okay.
city. So we
I
have
like that
areas
idea.
like that where you drop in, you keep going, and you see things that you didn't know were there, that you didn't know the city was built on top of. And I think that's a really cool element. We try to allow the player to see kind of behind the scenes of the city, go under the surface, and, as well as seeing it from up high from the bigger landmarks.
The result of all this work is that this take on Gotham aims to feel like a legitimate place, not just a sandbox for spandex crime fighting. We've heard before that this will be the largest Gotham ever made in game form,
Right.
but that's not what the developers are proud of.
We made a very big Gotham City, but what I think is really unique to Gotham Knights is the density of it. Sometimes I will be searching for something or fighting a crime and not realize how close to me something else is happening that I'm going to want to interact with afterwards or before. There's just such a depth of nooks and crannies to explore inside our city, and I think that that's really unique to Gotham Knights.
The
Okay.
idea of a Gotham packed with references, miniature
Yeah, look at
histories,
the fast travel.
and sinister
That's funny.
mysteries is alluring. After all, this is the promise of a town with real backstory, that it's not just the people living there who'll help tell the story, but the city itself. Gotham has been many things to many people. It's appeared in comics, movies, and gaming worlds. It's been reinvented repeatedly, traveling through time with us from block color 40s issues of Detective Comics to the grey monoliths of Christopher Nolan's trilogy. But all of those versions of Gotham have been snapshots of a city in its current form. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Gotham Knights' version is that we won't just see the city as it is, but hopefully learn what it's been.
That's a way to end the video. That was a good in-depth discussion about the entirety of the open world and like what it's really going to entail and what we're going to really be seeing. And I'm genuinely excited about everything that they're going to be presenting for us for Gotham Knights in the open world. I think that is one of the big selling points of this game, is how compact and how in-depth the actual open world is. No matter what the story entails, no matter how good the story is or how bad the story is, no matter how good the game overall is, we could all say that the open world looks fucking fantastic. And I think that they're actually doing something incredible here, with how in depth in how actually detailed this world looks. And hopefully that kind of like is the same feeling when we actually play it. It's not just some marketing tactic to get us to buy the game, because it's not that good. But we'll see. I hope that it's incredible, and I'm really excited to see what they do. So tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for more videos in the future, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Peace out.